Delay. Hello, I'm Barbara. Hi, everyone. All two of you, or more that are out there watching. Thanks. Hi, Ma. I am Barbara Brandon-Croft, and I am here because today my book comes out. Ta-da! Where I'm coming from. Beautiful book. I can't even believe how beautiful it is. Comes out today, and I'm excited about it, and I wanted to tell everybody about it. And I'm also going to tell you about me, so you understand why I have a book. But Drawn and Quarterly did this wonderful book. If you can see in the back, I also have it, but this is it. And doing Instagram Live is not one of my comfort places, but I'm going to do it, and it's going to be fine. And you guys, I hope, will enjoy it. So I also decided that if I start saying too much or I lose my train of thought, that what I'm going to do is pick up my book and show it to you and gain my composure and continue talking. Even though I have notes, this might happen. So here we go. So today is launch day and my book is coming out. And it is a collection. It's a compilation of my work. I did a comic strip called Where I'm Coming From for 14 years. And this book is like an origin story. It tells how it happened. It tells all the steps it took to make it happen. And it shows 14 years of my strip. And then there's more. There's me talking about what have done since. It has some of my latest work. And it also has essays, one by Sharon Pendana, who's a friend of mine and a wonderful writer who wrote a profile on me. And then there's the incredible Rebecca Wanzo, who is a scholar in comics at Washington University in St. Louis. And she wrote an extremely involved and excellent essay and puts my comic strip in historical context. And because my strip was first published in Detroit Free Press in 1989, and I was syndicated until 2005. So that was many years ago. This is 30 years ago we're talking about. So I'm all over the place, but it's okay because this is my book and I'm not exactly following my script, but that's okay. So my strip is, why is it important? And it is important because I make the first Black woman to be nationally syndicated in the mainstream press, and that's actually a euphemism for white press. So I kind of broke the color line. There was Jackie Arms ahead of me. She was 60 years ahead of me. And she was in newspapers. She is the first Black woman to be in newspapers. My distinction is that I crossed the color line, and I first went into Detroit Free Press, and then Universal Press, which is a huge syndicate, picked me up, and I was distributed across the country and even around the world, because I was in several papers in the Caribbean, The Gleaner, Guardian, that's the one in Barbados. I was in the South African Drum for a time. So, and of course, I was in Canada. So I had a wide range, and it made a difference because I said twice. It's time to pick up the book. I said it again. It made a difference because it was first and it was new. And before that, we did not hear Black women's voices on the comic pages. So it's kind of unique. So just to let you know, I am the daughter of Brumsick Brandon Jr. And he did a comic strip called Luther back in the day. He was one of here's Luther. He was one, and here's my dad. There he is, and Luther. He was one of the first of three Black cartoonists who crossed the color line again. So it was Dad with Luther. It was Maury Turner with We Pals, and it was Ted Shearer with Quincy. And I would argue that this all happened in the late 60s. And I would argue that it happened because it was children talking. And it was an easier way to hear that Black voice on these pages, on these mainstream pages. It was, if you think about it, the late 60s was a turbulent time. Civil rights movement was in full force. Not that it has ever left, but it was in full force at that time. And cities were on fire. And people were being assassinated. It was a big thing. Anyway, the mainstream press wanted to start having their comic pages reflect their readership. Hence, my dad and the other guys came in, great comics, all of that. But 30 years after that, we still didn't have a woman talking about things. And certainly we didn't have too many adults. So adult Black folks. So when I did Where I'm Coming From, I created it for a Black women's magazine, and the magazine folded before I was printed. But years later, my dad got a note from Detroit Free Press. Do you know of any Black cartoonists? We would like to have that voice on our pages. And I was like, and he said to me, are you going to talk about doing this? Are you going to do it? So I sent my work to Detroit, and they liked it, even though it was oddball. Here it is, Black women, just faces and hands, speaking their mind, being upfront about whatever they wanted to talk about. Everything from police brutality to hairstyles to romantic relationships, the whole gamut. I felt free. I kind of thought of myself as a social cartoonist, it's not necessarily political all the time, social cartoonist. And I talked about anything I wanted to talk about. It was a weekly, and it ran in 65 papers at its top. But now we have a collection of all the strips. And let me just show you what it looks like. It's lovely. That's me back in the day, 30 years ago. But we start out with showing strips and Where I'm Coming From. And we go into the idea of how it got started. It's certain letters from syndicates, things that I put together to try to sell it to syndicates. And we also have, I wrote this when I was in my 30s for the cartoonist profiles. And it's interesting for me to read it because it was my 30-year-old self talking about how I got to where I am. And then we have the press kit that I put together, plus the characters, the breakdown of who the characters are. I would read them to you, but I want you to buy the book and you can read it for yourself. And then we have years of strips, years and years of strips, which is great. And then we have, I feel like I can get there. We got a chance, and then I got to write the afterword, and I talk about what happened afterward, after the strip ended, and what happened with me and what happened with my characters. I was thrilled that Drawn and Quarterly shows some of the things that I'm doing now and where my characters are now. And that's also part of this amazing book, I might say, breaking my arm, patting myself on the back. There's my dad again. That's me and my dad. And there's a story that Sharon Pendana wrote. And that's me and my family. There's Monty, my husband, and Chase, my son, at the exhibit. I did an exhibit at the Billy Ireland Museum of me and my dad's work called Still, Racism in America. And then I have a pictures from my life. It's me as a kid with my brother and sister. Okay. And then here's Rebecca Wanzo's piece. And it's very in depth and it's very good. And I really appreciate her ability to um, explain how important my work is. Again, I'm going to break my arm patting myself on the back, but yes. And then I'm able to do some thank yous. All these were it not for these folks. I probably left somebody out or more than one person out, but I tried my best to thank everybody who was really helpful. And then I just so pleased to be able to dedicate this book to my cousin Stevie, who I miss beyond measure. And this book is dedicated to him because he's not with us anymore, but I love him and I wish he were, and he would have been so excited about this. So here's the book again. And lots of people talked about it here, wrote blurbs, had things to say, nice things to say. And if you have an opportunity, you should check out the Washington Post and the New York Times. They actually have done profiles. Each one of them did profiles on me and my work. And it's a great feeling to know that your work meant something and that it has a place in history. Me being a history buff, I am very proud of that. And if anybody's out there listening, feel free to ask me any questions you need. And I'll still try to show my book and talk about it some more. Let me look at my notes. Probably talked in 5 minutes. I was trying to take up 20. But yeah, the book is really a very extensive look at where I'm coming from came to be, and where I'm coming from was and is, because I still do it. I put it on Instagram and Facebook, and thank you, people. I'm getting congratulations on the release, and I appreciate that because I feel very pumped about it. And it's somebody asked me if how I felt about this resurgence of attention to my work, and I'm just thrilled. I don't even know how else to describe that. It's an incredible feeling, and I wish my dad were here, because I think he would be thrilled. I know my mom is thrilled. And I think, and I'm glad. And my siblings and my friends and everybody, they're like, oh, Barbara. So, and what's interesting to me, maybe, is that I live in New York, always have. And my first paper was Detroit. And a lot of times people thought I lived in Detroit. But I didn't. I've always been in New York, and all my newspapers, I didn't have this New York City area. So this is a chance for my friends to really see everything that a collection of what I've done throughout all these years. And I think they may recognize themselves in some of the strips. I know I recognize myself. A lot of these strips, all of my characters are based on me to some degree, and my friends to another degree, so it's just it's nine characters, and that's how I tried to put it together. I have a question, and it says, did you have any trepidation about revisiting your characters after such a long time? Let's see. I had a trepidation about revisiting my work because I'm an artist, and after you do something and you put it out there, it's done. So sometimes you go back and read through stuff and you're like, what was I thinking? That was supposed to be funny, or that was supposed to be provocative. But my character has stayed with me, honestly. And I did not, so they never really left me. They were always in my head, always toiling around. And it wasn't until 45 got elected that made me say, okay, I can't get it out. But this is I mean, who am I? But I thought I could use it. I have a voice with my characters, and I started letting them talk again. And even without a venue, I was able to get it out of me, which made me personally feel better. And then I shared it and got some nice responses to my thoughts about what was going on in the world. And so since he came down the golden escalator, I have been back. So I can thank him for something. That's about it. So the trepidation came when it was time to put the book together, and I needed to go back through my work from 1991 through 2005. And that was a little scary. Although I found that I liked some of them. I was like, hey, I still feel that. Or I chuckled. I was like, I'm kind of funny. Sometimes I really hit the mark. Oh, I have another question. I think it's the same question. Hold on. Same question. All right. This is Barbara with technology, which is trouble. But where I'm coming from, got to get it. Get the book. Oh, I do have a question. It says, do I have a favorite character? That's hard to say. But I would say that when you see my work, if you haven't seen my work, if you know my work, probably the one I use the most when I have something serious I want to say, or I want to talk about race, or I want to talk about social injustice. Very often I use Lakeisha, and she's the one who has like the stylized dreads. Where is she? She's on the cover. Oops, that's her. I have the most fun with her because I feel like I can, I don't have any barriers. She doesn't have any barriers. So when I talk through her, she doesn't use filters. She just says what she's thinking. And to a certain degree, all of them do. But I tend to agree with her point of view the most, Lakeisha. But I like them all. And as I say, there's a little bit of me in everybody. I mean, there's Jackie, who's, is she on the cover too? Yeah, there she is at the bottom there, if you can see her. She's like the most emotional one, and she has a lot of anxiety, and she worries about the craziest things. Yeah, that would be me. And so she's worried about her weight. I don't show bodies, and that's purposeful. I just want people to look at these women in their faces and understand what they're talking about and read and hear what they're saying. But she does worry about her weight. Me. There's, Nicole, who's like, back in the day, we used to say fly girls. Is she on the cover? Oh, there she is. She's more concerned with how she appears, how she looks. And that's me. I'm sitting, going to do a radio interview, and I'm worried about my hair. What? It makes no sense. But that's what I do. Okay, I have another question. And the question is, where is your DC event next week? It is at the Loyalty Bookstore. And if I could rattle off the address, I would, but I can't because I'm not that prepared. But it's at the Loyalty Bookstore, and I'm going to be in conversation with Sharon Pendana. Sharon is from DC, and she's a writer, and she's going to be there, and we'll be able to talk. We're old friends. We both had experiences at Essence. We were there at different times because I'm older than everybody under the sun. But she is. I'm looking forward to that, and I hope folks come out. If you're in DC, come to check us out and buy a book. This I'm really I can't just say it enough. Buy the book. This is the book. And this is what you get when you get the book. years and years of where I'm coming from. And if I didn't mention it already, I will mention it. If I did mention it already, I'll mention it again. But today, not only did the New York Times do a profile on me and my work, so did the Washington Post. And I'm very proud of that. I'm going to post it on my Facebook when I got to read the articles real fast before this interview. And I want to go read them again because I just want to love it up. But it's really nice to be recognized and know that you're telling, you're speaking for a lot of people. That's been my highest compliment from readers when they say that they see themselves in these characters and that I'm speaking for them. That's a very encouraging and high compliment for me. Let's see. I have a question. Are there any artists that have inspired you? And when I'm asked that question, my first answer is my dad. There is no way that I would be anywhere. I could do anything without my dad. I grew up in a household where cartooning was revered. My dad was a cartoonist. Before Luther, after Luther. That's what he did. And it just seemed like an ideal way to communicate what you're thinking, or what you're feeling. So he was right in my house. So I had this, sure enough, in your face role model. And role models are important. I think everybody should want to be one, but he was, and I could see how things were done. So when someone asked me, can you come up with a comic strip? I was able to say, yes. Had my dad been a truck driver, say, I might have said, I don't know about a comic strip. I probably could drive a truck. But no, he was a cartoonist. And that was unique. He was the only cartoonist I knew. But as far as inspiration goes, Jules Feiffer was a huge inspiration for me. I could see his work in the Village Voice. Again, I'm a New Yorker. And I loved and stole the idea of having characters speak directly to the reader from him. I thought that was a great way to have your characters have my thoughts, express my thoughts through my characters and speaking directly to the reader. So, and the size, my strip was a different size. Comic strips that are going to fit in a newspaper, and newspapers were so important. We have fewer and fewer newspapers, unfortunately, but comic strips had to fit a certain aspect ratio, and that's the only way you can get your strips in. And I didn't want to do that, and I didn't want to do a daily. I wanted to do a weekly, especially since it was conceived as a monthly, and so that's what I did. I said a few times, time to look at the book. Okay, I got another question. Are you making comics frequently these days? I am. Every time something, not every time, but the news inspires me to do comics. It's some of the stuff you just can't make up. I watch the news incessantly. And sometimes I have to turn it off because it's just too much. But when crazy things happen, I feel a need to express myself through my characters. And so I don't have a deadline. And that's something that I need personally if I'm going to keep getting things out, because I believe in deadlines. I meet deadlines. So without that, I have the freedom of just talking about what I want to talk about when I want to talk about it. But many things are going on in the news, makes me want to talk about it. My last strip was about the police officers, the Black police officers brutalizing and killing. And I know I'm a Black man, and I felt compelled to do a strip on that. I might even have it here behind me. I'm going to check, but I see I have another question. Do I have a favorite strip in the collection? I don't, because there's so many. I tried to count them. There are over like 400 strips in the book, and other assorted little drawings, doodles, and images in the book. I don't think I have a favorite strip. That's a lot of years, and a lot of them are a sign of the times. And what is also interesting, it's a sign of that time, but it's also a sign of this time. So it's kind of interesting that I would have that some of the stuff that's in here, and this is something I've been told and been flattered by, is that what was relevant then is still relevant now. And in the first book I did, Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis wrote the intro, and they said something to the effect of, if you could put my work in a time capsule, and years from now people can look at it and say, oh, that's what people were going through. But what's so surprising is that is what people are still going through, and these are feelings people are still having. And actually one of the Tahari Jones, who wrote An American Marriage, which I love that book. Read it. But that's one of the things she said, that it was both ahead of its time and right on time. How sweet is that? But I feel like a lot of people agree with that. That at the time it seemed ahead of its time, but it was also right on time. And now it still works. A lot of the strips still work, and they're people you would like. You can read about them. You can read them. You can act like you're eavesdropping when they're talking to each other. That was my hope, is that you'd feel like you were eavesdropping in on them. And I think you'll like them. And I think you know people like them. Or if you don't know people like them, you'd want to know people like them. I have a question, I think. Will my strip return to newspapers? Will there still be newspapers? That's the question. The newspapers are a dying breed. All of print is a dying breed. I spent the last 18 plus years working at a magazine. I was a research director at Parents magazine, and print is going by the wayside for digital. And it's unfortunate because newspapers are so important, or had been so important. When I first signed with the syndicate, a newspaper syndicate, they warned us that, they could see the way the tide was flowing. Is that a phrase? They could see how things were going, and that newspapers were, declining, and circulations were declining, and digital was taking its place. So as with all print, like I mentioned that I was a research director at Parents magazine, and that's a fancy fact checker. I was the head of the fact checkers. Great job, great people, but a company buys, it's a digital company, and they're like, we're going to get rid of the print and its people. And so I don't expect that there'll be a resurgence of newspapers. I don't expect there'll be a way for me to show my work in newspapers again. I think it had its day. Not too long ago, I was in Ohio for the CXC Crossroads convention, and while I was in Columbus, the high school asked me if I would come speak to the high school students, and I actually had to explain how important newspapers are. And it's it's interesting how important newspapers were. So it took, 20 minutes to explain who I was, because newspapers are dying. I got another question, I think. Nope. I heard my sound. So let's see. Here's the book. You need to buy the book. It's Where I'm Coming From. It's available at independent stores. It's available at Amazon. It's available at, let's see, any place, Barnes and Noble, any place you like to buy your books, you can find this book. And I'll be in Queens. I'll be at the Q and Willow bookstore, not tomorrow, day after tomorrow, and signing books. So bookstores anywhere, online anywhere, type in Where I'm Coming From, and you will be able to, you can purchase the book. That would be great. Let's see. I have a question. With so much happening in the news right now, how do you decide what you're going to speak about? It's whatever I'm at the liberty. I have the liberty of doing what I feel like when I feel like doing it. And sometimes it is overwhelming. There is so much going on with the news. And then I can look at some old strips and see that I talked about issues of abortion, access, way back when. This has been a long fought struggle. It's amazing that we're back, 50 years, we've turned the times back 50 years. So it's whatever strikes me most that I feel like I need to talk about. Yeah, I think, sorry. So that my last strip, I'm going to put this down for just a second, even though I'm going to say a few more times. My most current strip was about what happened in Tennessee. And it reads this is Lakeisha. She's like, I'm often accused of seeing everything through the lens of racism. That is, in terms of color, black and white. But that's not entirely true. I also recognize the hybrid race, and its color is blue. This is my latest one. And then I love doing hashtags now, just to make sure the point is punctuated. So it's hashtag over policing of Black folks, legacy of slavery, drinking the Kool-Aid, self-loathing, race is a made-up concept, say his name, Trey Nichols. So I do it. I do it whenever I feel it, and it's at my own pace. So I do what I'm feeling when I feel it. And some of my later ones are in the book. We've got a few pages of that. I appreciate Drawn and Quarterly for doing that, because it's not just what was ran in syndication. Yes. If you have any more questions, I love them. I feel better talking to questions than just blabbing on my own. But I'll blab. I'll continue to talk. Where I'm coming from. Buy the book and check out the articles that are in the paper today. Of the papers that are still around, two of the most respected ones in my book are the Washington Post and the New York Times. And they both chose to do profiles on me in conjunction with the launch of my book. And that's pretty hip and happening. Here's a question. Have I received any negative responses to the honesty of your strip? I like the way that is phrased. Yeah. You can't please all the folks all the time. I actually got some negative response to a strip I did about getting vaccinated. it just seemed like it was only smart to try to protect yourself from a deadly disease that was taking over the world, once in a lifetime pandemic. And my character was saying, and this one is in the book. My character was saying that, okay, you're not going to get your vaccination. I got mine, and the end line is, you're welcome. So the point is, yeah, I got vaccinated. I'm trying to control this. I'm trying to make sure if I get it, I don't spread it to somebody else. It's just a smart thing to do. It's just a nice thing to do. It's just what life should be. You look out for one another and you try to protect one another. But here I was getting some blowback because I was speaking up about getting vaccinated. So everything's a hot topic. Everything is, pushes people's buttons these days. So I kind of get a jolt of feeling like I've done the right thing when I get some kind of bad review, or somebody is upset with me for something. And I'm like, well, I guess that was a good one because I pushed somebody's button. And so that makes me feel good. Yeah. Somebody says, I truly relate to the Monica character. Thank you for her. What inspired you to include her struggle in your strip? So for folks who don't know, Monica is my character. She's on here too. Everybody's on here, right? Oh, there she is, up there. I got to remember where to stay. So she's fair skinned, and she has quote unquote good hair, and she's very militant. And I like using her because here I can talk to the fact that colorism is a thing. It might not be something that white folks know about. It might be something that's more apparent among, well, Black folks know more about it because we live it. But we come in all shades. And I can remember being called out for my hair. I'm like, okay, it can be curly, but right now I use the curling iron to take the curls out because I thought that this would be a fun style. Fashion. It's just what I like. It's a style. But I got called out. Oh, what was it? You put chemicals in your hair. You're not a natural Black woman. I'm like, I am a natural Black woman. I actually use a curling iron to straighten it out. But even if I hadn't, I am a natural Black woman. And this woman, my character, Monica, speaks to how can this be called good hair when we know how it came. It's a result of a legacy of slavery. It's a result of my ancestors, my African ancestors, being raped by their European slave masters. And I come down the I want to say lane. That's not the word I'm looking for, but it trickles down to this generation, and this is how it presents. So she talks about those kinds of issues. And it's just one more thing that I have an opportunity to talk about in the strip, because I can. And I think it's an education for some people, the kind of things that Black folks go through. They talk very plain and very honestly with one another, and that's one of the real things that we deal with. The question is, how much input did you have in the production design of the book? Well, thank you, Tracy. Tracy Heron is at Drawn and Quarterly. She came up with the ideas. I came up with, loosey-goosey ideas. I was like, what about this? What about that? She kept, every time she sent me something, I might say, I don't know about that, but I like this. But she just kept straight ahead. with ideas, and she kept showing me things. And, if I said something like, maybe we can do the lettering on here white instead of yellow. She's like, we can do that. So that was cool. But Tracy was exceptional in putting this book together. And even they asked for my input. So I would, I get to look at the pacing of the book, and I could make suggestions like maybe this one should go before that, maybe this one go after that, and then I was even able to write. Well, the two main things that I wrote as in this day and time was the afterword and the thank yous. But I had complete freedom, and I get some direction. How about if we add this, or how about you do that? And I'm like, oh, I could do that. We work really well together. Everybody, but Francine, she at Joining Quarterly, she knew my characters. I was like, oh my God. And Peggy, bless Peggy. Peggy was the one who called me in the first place and said, we need to do a book. I was like, really? But she's like, we have to. Now I have another question. And the question is, I've heard the still exhibit will be on the road. Is that true? So just a recap. I did it. Me and Tara Nakashima Donahue, who is my friend and curator, we put together several shows. But the last show we put together and we showed in New York was an exhibit of my work and my dad's work. Not just Luther, his dad again. Not just Luther, but all of his. We picked and choose from all of his works, and so we did it in New York. And the idea is still racism in America, a retrospective in cartoons. And what we did was show all these racism in all its iterations, so many. We put them on the wall, and we put mine near his, where we talked about basically the same subject, 30 years apart at least. And so in the show, I know it happened in New York when it opened. It got nice turnout. The next day it was lockdown. It was the end. So I was very disappointed and was grieving that for a long time. But the Billy Ireland at the Ohio State University said, we'd like to bring it here. So we brought it there. So now, and it was there for 6 months, and it's been down since, I can't remember, but it's been down for a little while now. But now I'm in talks with two other universities about bringing it. So my hope is to bring the exhibit, because it's an education, and I hope we can bring it to Florida and educate somebody down there in particular. I'm not going to say his name either, but the importance of understanding. We're not going to get past racism unless we understand it, and unless we can face it. And that's what this exhibit does. It's a true education. So I'm glad that universities are interested in bringing it to their bringing it to their students. Let's see. I thought I had another book. I can't even talk. I thought I had another question, but this is what I want you to do, is to buy the book. I want you to enjoy it, and I want you to know my friends. They'll be your friends. These ladies, you will love them. They're my girlfriends. They'll be your girlfriends. I have a question. I love this. Are you planning to come to Europe to promote the book or for an exhibition? Wow. Well, let me say, I do have a passport. I would love to. I've only been to Europe one time, and that's when I worked at Essence. That's another one of my many jobs in my lifetime. But I was fashion and beauty writer at Essence magazine in the 80s. And that was my one chance that I got to Europe, and I got to Paris. I would love to go back. I would love to promote the book. I think this works this could work in many places. Like I mentioned, it was in the South African drum for a time. And so I think that what's going on in the minds of Black women should be out there. And I would love to come to Europe. Anybody wants to bring me, I've got my passport. I am going to go to Toronto for the festival at the end of April. So I'll be there to promote the book. And there's some other festivals coming up that I've been invited to that I'm going to attend and bring the book and share the word. So this is the book. You can get it at a bookstore or online. It's hardcover. It's a nice book. I'm really proud of it. It's a really gorgeous book. And I'll flip through again just so you can see. See pictures and everything. It's the origin story of where I'm coming from. I have hold on. I have another question. I think I don't have another question, but I'm almost done. And if you have another question, ask me now because it's almost done. Here is the book, drawn in quarterly. It comes out today. And all my friends and people out there who pre-ordered my book, I bless you and I thank you. And hopefully you'll be getting it in a number of days, if not today, in a few days. But if you had not had a chance to pre-order, you can just order because now it's out. Today is launch day, and this is the book. And it's a great book. If I say so myself, it really is. And I'm very proud of it. And it's drawn in quarterly, where I'm coming from. I'm Barbara Brandon-Croft, and I hope you get it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in, and check it out.